Good evening, everybody. It is Saturday, March 20th at 12:35 in the morning. I wanted to pick off from my last video talking about inclusion body disease and CBD treatments and hemp extract treatments for exotic animals. And here's a story I wanted to share with people. They use CBD extract to work on these Bengal tigers. One had severe anxiety, another one has lung cancer. And it was an incredible story down here about a boa constrictor that developed a tumor the size of a grapefruit. And after about 7 feedings with this hemp oil, well, CBD oil, it was able to reduce the tumor to almost non-existent. Now the snake is living and thriving. Now that's not exactly inclusion body disease, but it could be. I don't. It's not saying if they ever had the snake tested for that, but it does. The CBD oil does take care of did take care of the tumor. And the same thing, I'm treating a Guyana boa that had tumors on her head, but they're all disappeared now. There's another snake of mine. Out of this, all three are ill, but tonight I'm going to focus on my Nicaraguan Central American boa who was in the worst shape. And I also like to talk about what I think, give you my thoughts on how inclusion body disease even happens. First, you have to sit back and think about it. There's people out there that have boas for 6, 7, 8 years, and it's their only snake, and they're not exposed to other snakes. And they feed it, and they're caring for it, they're giving it the heating, and just suddenly out of the blue, after all these years, the snake just falls ill, and they take it to the vet and find out it developed inclusion body disease, and they're told that it's, most likely the virus has lived in the snake for all these years and is now starting to show its clinical signs. But I'm highly skeptical of that. I really don't think that's how it happens. I think the trigger here has everything to do with their heating and their feeding regimen, but more so on the feeding regimen. See, in captivity, they're fed captive raised rodents, mice, rats, and normally these rodents that are frozen thawed, a lot of people like to use frozen thawed, and what I believe is happening here is these rodents are just getting a high protein diet of just commercially available high protein dry dog food, other high protein, high carbohydrate foods. But in the wild, these boas, they eat birds, a variety of different rodents, and in the wild, their prey items eat just about everything from fruits, vegetables to shrubs. Fruit bats eat fruit. Bats eat regular. Can eat bananas, things like this sort of thing. And what's happening, I believe, is these boas are consuming in the wild these prey items, and these prey items are carrying the essential polyphenols that are in all these fruits, vegetables, shrubs, and everything else, plants, and so forth. And the boa is getting their polyphenols, the essential polyphenols, in the wild. And that's why in the wild this IBD doesn't seem to be a problem at all. And the same thing, these boas can handle their internal parasites. They don't seem to die. Boas can grow 7, 8 feet in the wild as long as they're not hunted and they're not taken out by predators. They can survive and thrive in the wild. And their temperatures are a lot more consistent. 80 degrees at night, 90 degrees during the day, 75, 80% humidity, those sorts of things. And I think what's happening is the temperatures. We have a combination here of captive bred rodents over time, and say 75-degree temperatures is enough to lower their immune systems to the point that just depends on the individual snake. Some snakes may never develop the disease. Others, it's very possible. because there is a lot of them out there that do get this disease early. It seems like out of thin air, and you know, I do believe it's these polyphenols that holds the key to curing this virus. So, you know, that's just my thought. I think it makes a lot of sense. There's nobody else out there on the internet talking about polyphenols and giving the reptiles. But if you look at iguanas and tortoises and this sort of thing, there's reptiles out there that are ecothermic and they're eating vegetables, and these vegetables contain polyphenols. Okay, and these these tortoises and iguanas and things are getting their vegetables and their polyphenols, their essential polyphenols, and they thrive. Even though inclusion body disease is more in snakes, as far as I'm aware of, and I believe that's the main key ingredient is to treating the virus, because there's not going to be any vaccine or any miracle antibiotic that's going to cure the disease within a matter of a few days to a month or whatever. It's not going to happen because it's a virus. And just like in humans, the virus is going to have to take its course. And you take your animal to a veterinarian, they're just going to give you antibiotics. A good veterinarian that's, very knowledgeable about reptiles, that has the antibiotics on hand, will give you antibiotics to basically subside the secondary bacteria infections, the inflammatory conditions and things like that. Maybe the animal will start eating again, maybe not. And then usually these antibiotics are only a temporary solution. They give you, say, 7 syringes with the antibiotics over, and you're supposed to give your animal the shot every 3 days. So after 3 weeks, and then once the antibiotics are over with, the clinical signs make a quick return, and the virus mutates, and next time you give antibiotics, they're usually not effective, and the animal usually perishes. So I was thinking about all this, so that's what made a decision to treat my Central American boa. His name's Tufu, and when I noticed he first had it, he had swollen in his vent area. He was anorexic, very hard to gain weight. He would feed, but it was very hard for him to, it seemed like every time he ate, he just wouldn't gain any weight whatsoever. And when I took him into the vet back in last November, he only weighed like 88 grams at the time. Right now he's probably double that. So I took him to the Barberton Veterinarian Clinic, and these people are very high tech. They have the latest technology of everything. And I had to have them do everything under the sun to figure out what is wrong with the snake, because his lips were swollen, his vent was swelling, he was anorexic, and he would twitch. And when he slithered, he would slither like real stiffly, like it was like a pain reaction. If you touched him, he would jump and actually try to strike at you, because it was like a pain reaction when you even just touched him. Just all these nasty clinical conditions, and I was figuring this is what it was, but I had to be sure. So they did a fecal exam looking for internal parasites. They did his blood count, several blood counts, and then down here I had him do that's an x-ray. I'm thinking, did he fall somehow and land on his water bowl or something, and something internally is going on, and he's got hurt that I didn't see. That all turned out clean, but right here is the Ibd test at $325, and unfortunately it came back positive. So then I was left with the decision. They said that they didn't expect him to live, and of course this is back in November, very early November, and they did not expect him to live much more than a week. They say usually the snakes of this small size have these clinical conditions, they just don't survive. And so my best option was to euthanize him, but I just decided against that. And that's where I'm at today. And here's a picture. He does still have a little bit of swelling in his lip area, but his eyes are back to normal. He's gaining weight now. I did a video about him feeding, me setting up his hemp extract. I use the hemp extract Colorado for the omega-3, 6, 9, vitamin C, vitamin E, and the essential uh, polyphenols that make up the hemp plant, that come from the hemp plant itself. And I use the Governor. It's supposed to be the best out there olive oil that contains the most potent polyphenols, anti, you know, inflammatory properties, antiviral. They swear by it for using Alzheimer's disease, feline leukemia, and that's what inclusion body disease does. It scrambles the animal's blood cells. It will dramatically raise the white blood cells, and then they suddenly drop. And once the depletion of white blood cells happen, the virus takes the body over, and the body just can't heal itself anymore because the immune system and the people have the temperatures at 75 degrees when they should be around 83 for a low side. So their immune systems are just totally compromised now, and that's why they usually don't survive. So I was thinking about all this and took this all into account, and I raised his temperature. Actually, I raised the whole room. The room that they're in is, I have it set at 83 degrees. The humidifier in there at 65% room humidity. So that way, you know, it just takes all the guesswork out of the cool spot, and then I just provide them a hot spot at 90 degrees, and they thrive. All three of them are doing just fine. And the other two that were having the clinical signs, those also disappeared. I do the same thing. I give them the hemp extract on top of the olive oil treatments on their frozen thawed food. And as I was saying before, you know, well, tonight in the video, when I fed this guy, I think this had a lot to do with the camera. He was very shy at first. He was like, usually he's like right on it. As soon as I just dangle it in there, and he's just like, bam, he's got it. And just tonight, for some reason, you know, I have this camera, and he's watching. He's too worried about looking at the camera and distracted that I closed the lid, and he's sitting there looking up at it. And I said I'd turn the light out when he was starting to eat, but then I turned the light back on at the end of the video to show that he did, in fact, eat it. But yeah, he's a very cool animal to have. I enjoy him, and I'm glad that and I do expect all three of them to, you know, continue to live and thrive. I do believe that this virus is beatable. I believe that the polyphenols is the key. I really do. It makes a whole lot of sense. Like I said before, you know, they're getting a diet of just these commercially available rodents that are just on one strict diet for the most part. Maybe some people's rodent suppliers they're feeding them these essential polyphenols, and these other animals will never get this virus. You know, it's just hard to say. But to me, I know the large majority of these frozen thawed that are sold out there on the internet and sold in pet stores, they just give them a high carbohydrate diet. You know, mainly consisting of high protein dog food, dry dog food, and I think a lot of that nowadays is just GMO based anyway. That's why I picked a hemp extract. It's 5,000 milliliters per 1 ounce bottle, very potent Colorado hemp extract. And like I said, my main target on that was the polyphenols in the hemp plant, on top of the polyphenols and the extravagant olives from Greece, the Governor olive oil. That's, you know, my take on it. So I hope this video is helpful for other people out there that have boas and they're ill. This is, you know, your option that you can do. It worked for me. He's still alive. He is eating well. He is gaining weight well. Even in the video towards the end, when you watch him eat, you can even see the real defined body line going down the side of his body. You know, that indicates he's perfect body weight now. I think I'm actually going to cut him back, because I was feeding him every 5 days just to get that kind of weight on him, because it was just the virus is just, you know, these animals eat this food, but they're just not getting, you know, normally if they weren't sick, they would, you know, they'd get huge, you know, but I make sure their low temperature is 83 degrees, so that's going to bump up their immune system and their metabolism too. And oh yeah, he's going to the bathroom well, and they're all going to the bathroom well when they're supposed to and shedding on their own. And that's another thing I demonstrated, why you'd want to take your rodent and put it in a plastic bag and fill it up with cold water, just regular tap water, as long as it's filtered and clean. I wouldn't use city water, but I'd use like cold bottled water, 50-degree water, to thaw out the rodent. That way the rodent absorbs that moisture, because when the snakes eat this rodent, if you give it to them dry, it can cause, it to harden up on the insides, and it can be very difficult for them to pass because this disease attacks the liver, attacks the kidneys. See, that's another thing. These inclusions go after the kidneys and the liver of these animals, and it causes constipation. They can't go to the bathroom. And that's another early indicator that something could be wrong, that the boa is constipated. It can, function correctly. You don't know anything's wrong, but it's just not going to the bathroom. You don't know why. The kidneys could be swollen. Not saying that's the 100% case, but it's a very high good possibility that he could have, this virus. You don't even know it. The kidneys are swollen. They can't pass the food, and they can die of kidney failure. And people don't even bother with the necropsy. They just start over for something else when they never had it tested. So you just never know. That's all I have for now, and I will make some future videos of feeding the others. And you all have a good night and take care. Okay, first what you want to do is put your prey item and thaw it out in faucet cold water, 50 degrees. And it takes about half hour to 45 minutes to thaw out this medium-sized mouse. And the reason why we're doing it this way is because this is frozen thawed, and what happens is the meat gets dried out. So we want it to be nice and saturated and borderline waterlogged here, because the snake's going to get all his hydration from this animal here. Okay, then what I do is after I drain the water out, I just seal it back up like so, and I'll roll it up just like this, and we'll use hot water from the faucet to fill up this tote. Usually just fill it all the way up to the top, and I'll use the lid as an anchor. And I'll let this sit for about 5 minutes. Here's my Central American boa. He's been diagnosed with inclusion body disease, and right now he's basketing in his hot spot. And I had this sealed off to keep the ventilation in for his humidifier, for his rectifogger there, and I have his hot heat pad under here set at 100 degrees, and he gets about 90-degree temperature here. And I have his UVB light set up here, and the ambient room temperature here is about 83 degrees. And so this does put off a little bit of heat, and it's sitting at 84 degrees. It's what you want to see. You want to see about between 83 and 84 degrees for a low temperature. And he does go in his hide there, but right now he's basketing in his heat spot, and I am going to put him in his feeding tote. And you have to watch because he is somewhat of a defensive snake. Very little handling because of his illness. Here, buddy, you might pick him up from his back. So we're going to place him in his feeding tote while his prey item is thawing out. Well, heating up, I should say. Go ahead, buddy. Oh yeah, you know what's coming, don't you? After about 5 minutes of heating up, I'll take him out. Oh, he's nice and warm, about 100 degrees. Nice and wet, so he's not too dry. It'll be easily passed for the snake to digest this and to pass it, because the inclusion body disease, what it does, it attacks their liver and their kidneys. So you don't want too big of a prey item. You want to prey them like this is a medium-sized mouse, and we're talking about for a 2-foot Central American Nicaraguan boa. So then I'll put it here like so. We have our Colorado Hemp Extract. This is omega-369, vitamin C, vitamin E, and the unique Well, here it had about a quarter of a serving. This has also makes up the unique polyphenols that come from the hemp plant itself. And we'll put it across there, about a quarter of a serving, maybe just, and I'll wipe it in like so. My finger. Next we have the Governor olive oil. Has very potent antioxidants, polyphenols, and this also acts as a laxative too. So this helps a lot with constipation that comes with inclusion body disease. Now if I can just open the lid because my hands are slippery, and I will put about half a teaspoon, like so. Set this bottle down, and we will apply it just like so. Made a little bit of a mess. It's okay, he'll absorb it from the bottom, and I'll work it around. Let it soak in really good. And bon appetit. Alrighty, and he knows it's coming too. Get the lid off. We have our tweezers. Right, buddy? Oh, I didn't mean to spook you. Wow, he usually whacks it a lot quicker, don't he? Oh. I never usually drop it either. You know what this is. There you go. And I'll just put this lid back on, secure it, and we'll turn the light off and let him eat.